Welcome to this video. I'm going to show you how to make a really basic and cheap armature for stop motion animation. Okay, so I'm going to run through some of the things you're going to need here to make this armature. As you can see, it is very basic. We've just got some aluminium wire. We've got some electrical terminal blocks holding these things together. You're going to need a cordless drill, although you could get by without one here. Some 2mm aluminium wire. You're going to need some super glue or something else fast setting, and the terminal blocks. You're going to need 4 in total, but 2 of these will have to have a 4mm hole drilled through the middle. Okay, and you'll see why in a little bit. You're also going to need some long nose pliers. You're going to need some snips, and you are going to need a flat-headed screwdriver. Okay, if you need to drill the hole, I recommend using a vise. Okay, don't try holding these things in your hand and drilling them. You could probably hurt yourself doing that. I like to start by drilling a smaller pilot hole. So the smallest drill I had in the studio was 2mm. So I drilled that all the way through first. Okay, it's easier than going straight at it with a 4mm drill. If you can't get all the way through with the 4mm drill, just drill the top part. Okay, you might find it kind of grabs and you have to keep going backwards and forwards. Drill one half, turn it over, and then drill through the pilot hole on the other side. Try and hold your drill a bit straighter than I have there as well. There it is. Okay, so we're going to start off by making the part for the heads, okay, and the body. This is all going to be in one part. So we're going to need some aluminium wire. I normally cut off what I think is going to be a bit more than what we're going to need, because I'm not really measuring this out. I'm just eyeballing it, doing this. You can be more precise, obviously, when you create your own. So what you want to do is make a big loop, which is going to be the head. Okay, obviously, depending on your design, this could be bigger or smaller. And you want to twist the first bit by hand. So you're going to quite tightly do 2 to 3 turns, okay, depending on how big you want your neck to be. And then you're going to press those bits of wire together, okay, cut it off so that it's about the same length. And then squeeze them together so that you can feed the 2 bits of wire through one of the terminal blocks, which has got a hole in it. So you want to have the screws pointing downwards and just slide it on until you get it all the way up to the edge. You might have to keep pinching them together, but persevere and you'll get it up to the twist. Okay, once you're there and you know that's where you want it to be, pull it back a little bit and then get out the glue. Okay, so you want to put a fair amount of glue on the part where this is going to meet up. Okay, it's a nice big blob. Try not to get it anywhere else other than the part where the terminal block is going to go. And then once you've done that, you're just going to slide that up into the glue. Careful not to get it on your hands because it will just stick to it straight away. And leave it to dry. Okay, now once you've done that, you can do this. I like to do this, it just adds a little bit more strength. And what I'm doing now is I'm basically looping the wire over the top of the terminal block. Okay, I started doing this because I wanted to make these initially without any glue. So I was able to kind of hold what is essentially the shoulder part together without any glue. So you could skip this if you wanted to and just rely on the glue itself. But if you want to give it a little bit of extra strength, then you can do this as well. So I'm basically folding over the top in one direction and then the other, and then crimping it together as best I can using the pliers. Once you've got that, you can twist it into place, ready to create the rest of the body part with the drill. So with this, we're going to put it into the drill. So you basically just kind of insert it into the end, use the chuck to tighten itself around the 2 bits of aluminium wire, and then hold that bit tight with the pliers and then just slowly twist it. Okay, don't do it too much. It gets too thick and it actually becomes a little bit more brittle if you do it too much. And there we have the body part. Then we want the other terminal block with the hole, and we want the screws facing up this time. Okay, the reason for that is just the screws kind of hanging down where we don't need them. So again, work out roughly where you want that to be, and then you're going to get the glue and glue it in place again. So go all the way around, making sure we get a nice seal on it. Yeah, put that in place. Leave it to dry once again. Okay, so now I'm going to create the arms. So we take our aluminium wire and get a rough length. Okay, double it over for how long we think the arms are going to be. Again, do a little bit extra if you want to, so that you can, account for any mistakes. There'll be plenty, believe me. And then, like we did with the head, you want another loop, which is going to be the hands. Okay, let's get a rough hand size, twist it around, and then we're going to do the drill again. So holding onto it along those pliers, slow drill, then pop it out. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that for the other arm. Okay, so here I'm just matching it up, just get it roughly the same size. Put it in the drill again to twist it. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is cut them down so they're both the same length. Okay, so I'm using the measurements on the mat that I'm cutting with here. So cutting one, and then I'm going to line them up and then try and cut them so they're the same length. So just using the mat as a guide. Okay, so once you've cut them to the right length, you can put them into the terminal block. You just need to make sure that the screw is completely undone before you put it in, and then you can just tighten it up as far as you can go. Okay, and it should be really in nice and tight. Do the same for the other side. And make sure that you're pressing it in as far as it can go as you're tightening it up. Okay, then I'm just going to bend the wire to basically put the shoulders in. Okay, so use the pliers to do the initial part as close to the terminal block as I can, and then I'm just going to use my fingers to bend the arms back down, giving you a little bit of shoulder. Obviously, the shape that you make will depend on the character that you want to apply this to. There we go, everything should be feeling pretty solid at this point. And then it's time to have a go at the legs. Okay, so we need, you guessed it, some more aluminium wire. A little bit longer this time. And again, maybe try and give yourself a little bit more than you think you need in case of any mistakes. This is going to be almost the same process as doing the arms, okay, but we've got to basically use the other terminal blocks as the feet, okay, for this particular armature. Okay, so once you've cut those to length, what I'm going to do is try and press that other end in. So using the pliers, just going to squeeze those tips together, okay, or squeeze the hoop together rather. Okay, and what we're trying to do here is achieve a part of the wire together that the terminal isn't just going to slide off of. Okay, so we want there to be a bit of resistance. Okay, so I'm taking the screws out of these because we don't need them. And you'll see it shouldn't go on one end. That's the idea anyway. So slide it down the other. So you'll find that you'll get it on, but you might not get it all the way down to the end, and that's fine. We want there to be some resistance there. Squeeze it in a bit more if you need to. There you go. Get it down to the end. Then we're going to put a lot of glue on. Okay, so only put this glue on the edge where the holes aren't going to be. Okay, we don't want to fill those holes in, and you'll see why in a little while. Okay, so once you've got the glue on, just slide that up. You see there, it just came off. It shouldn't normally happen. But if it does, just put it back on. Let it set. I obviously just don't know my own finger strength. Okay, and then repeat that process for the other one. It's worth noting while you're watching this that most armatures will have bones, so you will have bone elements to an armature. Professional armatures, like ball and socket armatures, will have bone elements and joints and things like that. This is very basic, but you can still achieve some pretty good results. Bear in mind that this armature will not last forever. Okay, it's perfect kind of for sort of smaller projects. Projects where you don't need your puppet to last for a long, long period of time. Okay, so once both of those are on, just set them to one side and let them dry. And once they're dry, they should be on nice and solid. Probably noticed the edit there, but there was a few moments passed before attempting this bit. Okay, so we're going in with a drill again, and then we're just holding on to the end. Now, if the glue has dried and stuck properly, then you'll be able to hold on to that terminal, okay, and still use the drill to twist the wire. Okay, and then bend it up, okay, and there you go, that is the ankle part. Then you need to have a kind of rough idea. Now, normally when you're making an armature, you will have a sketch of the armature, so you'll be working to that. Okay, so you'll actually be measuring things out and doing things properly. I think you want to get too bogged down with all of that inside of this tutorial. Yeah, a point there. Cut both the legs first. You'll see why in a little bit. Don't know why I skipped that here, but you do need to measure both the legs to make sure they're the same length before you start screwing them in. Doesn't matter if you don't. It's not the end of the world. It'll just make things go a bit smoother if you do. Okay, it's the same process as the arms. Just make sure the screw is completely wound out. Make sure that that leg is going in as far as it possibly can, and then tighten it up. Okay, then just bend it down into the shape that you want. So what's going to happen now is on this second leg, this is the one that I pulled off, okay, and then stuck back on. What I didn't do at that point was put some more glue on. So you'll see here what happens is the wire just spins around inside of it. So I just got to take it off again, okay, re-glue it, okay, and then let it set. Expect to make mistakes. Okay, it happens all the time. You might do this process, 10 or more times before you get it right. So more glue, slide it up, okay, and then just going to let that dry for a little bit. So with these terminal blocks, Okay, once you've taken the screws out of there, what you're left with is two 4mm holes. Okay, so what we can do with that is actually use those feet as our tie downs. So the terminals I'm using are 4mm holes. Okay, so I'm using a 4mm tie down bolt. Okay, and wing nut, and you can see it kind of fits perfectly in there. You get a really nice tight grip on that. Okay, so that's why we're using those as the feet without the screws in it. Okay, once your second leg is dry, if you made the same mistake as I have, it's then ready to twist again. Okay, so I'm kind of eyeballing this here because I didn't measure both legs first. Obviously, it should take a bit more time and care over these things, and you'll see why in a second. So again, just making sure that bolt is all the way out, then putting this leg in. Okay, again, making sure it's as far in as you can possibly get it before you tighten that bolt back up. What you can see here when I bend it back down is that actually they're completely different lengths, okay, which is why you should measure it and cut it first before you screw them both in. Okay, so just to make some adjustments there. What you want to do with anything that you're doing with just with aluminium wire is you want to reduce the amount that you're bending it as much as you possibly can. Okay, because it will not last forever, and eventually it will just break apart. Okay, so when you are moving things, try and move it in small increments as much as you can. You know, don't bend it too quickly and do it too much or do it unnecessarily, and hopefully your armature should last a little bit longer. Okay, so the leg is now the right length, screwing it back in, and bending it back down into shape. And there you have it. That's pretty much it. Even stands on its own. Okay, so remember, always try and bend in, small increments. Don't overstretch it, don't overdo it, and hopefully it'll last you for a small project. If you, like me, have some armature wire sticking out of one of the terminals, you can just trim it off, okay, before you start putting your plasticine or your cloth or whatever it is over the top. And there you go, a really basic and cheap armature.